Cabinet discussed on some very pertinent issues confronting us now for a fortnight or more. So we'll begin with the agitation that has been launched by the Joint Coordination Committee of the Kansia, NIDA, FONSESA and their sister organizations. If you recall, I think we have touched on this topic some time back. And issue is not much different till today. And despite the Cabinet Subcommittee on behalf of the government appealing to the JCC, they have not relented to our requests. So the entire system is almost paralyzed, as you know. And it is causing a huge inconvenience in the state and our citizens. We are all very concerned because there are so many other excuse me. There are so many other important issues that the government will have to deal with in the interest of our people, which are getting stalled because of the background strike. Here, if we go back, they are stressing on the 10th March circular advertising the vacancy of the IS quota, which is for the state, civil service and others who are in service in the state. That the entry point should be the NPSC. And those who could not enter the services through the NPSC should not be entertained for the vacancy. I have told you this move is new from their side. We have never seen this kind of resistance where vacancies should be exclusively reserved for the civil service, state civil service cadres. So it's a new development for the government. And successive governments over the decades, ever since the inception of our state, and ever since this IS cadre sub-quota portion reserved for the state. This is the first time that we are facing this opposition not to have an open merit-based recommendation for the officers who have served for 8 years and have outstanding performance, eligibility, and efficiency, and have shown merit in their career after holding a position which is equivalent to a district collector of that rank. So the government of the state has not changed its position. It has always tried to reserve and recommend at least one post for the officers with these qualities and records to the post of one vacancy in the highest cadre of the state. But this I have even last time provided you the names. I've read out the names also. While at it, I would like to rectify one mistake where I think there was an oversight in the records, and I was made to mention the name of Dr. Chisi, who is now the ex-officio secretary and director of the Census Department. He is an NPSC entry, and not as how I have mentioned you last time, for which I apologize for the mistake. Other than that, there are others who have over the decades always been recommended to fill up that one vacancy which falls vacant for the non-state civil service officers. So the government have never changed its step till today. And this is not a new trend that we have adopted recently also. So today, the contentious point is the order of the 6th of July 2020, where the order of the then Chief Secretary have passed at OM that only the civil service, state civil service cadres will occupy the IS vacancy given to the states. There. That is where we have tried to explain it to the people and to them also, that there were anomalies. Why we say the procedural lapses? That particular order restraining other services from being recommended to the IS cadre vacancy was not in a proper way discussed, obtained the competent authorities' consent, and then deviate from the age-old practice of the state government giving one to a non-state civil service officer. That was the point of contention which they are standing by now. But once again, I wish to explain it to all of them and to our people, the citizens of this state, that the government of the day has done nothing. The government has not adopted a new trend, a new policy. We are still going by what is the age-old conventional practice of the then governments. Now, if today there are certain oppositions to this practice and people want to change, then that requires a policy decision. And anything that has to do with policy decision has to go through proper channel. It has to be a political decision to effect any policy matters in the state by the state government. If at all there is going to be a change in the approach or the conventional practices over the decades, a paradigm shift in all these dealings, it calls for a political decision. Now, the 10th of March 2020 order did not have that kind of a political decision, and it failed to obtain the consent of the competent authorities. So it does not carry the weightage that it should to effect such a policy decision from doing away with entertaining even one vacancy for other services. But this is where we have to understand. Unfortunately, this time around, just before the advertisement was circulated, I think I'm getting really confused. That order we're referring to is 6th of July 2020. So this time around, 10th of March 2025, unfortunately, again, basing on that order, the executive, without obtaining the consent of the competent authority, had circulated this advertisement of one vacancy, wherein they have put that condition that he or she should be a state civil service entry and not otherwise. So that is where the officers, the NCS officers have, state civil service officers have started objecting. But the government have to stand by its conventional practice. And after it was circulated, only the cabinet and others came to learn that that same old mistake again has been made. So on the 27th, in the cabinet meeting, this was reviewed, thoroughly discussed, and revisiting all the previous orders of the 2020, and also having relevance with the IS appointment and selection orders of 1954 and 1997, the DOPT guidelines, and everything that had been practiced were studied and were briefed to the cabinet. The cabinet had asked to withdraw the previous circulation advertisement, and it was recirculated on the 24th of April. We have seen it, where that particular condition stating that only state civil service candidates were eligible to apply for this IS vacant post. That has been fronted. So now that all is said and done, we understand their contention and their new approach to this entire issue, that there should be a change. It is well taken. But as far as this time is concerned, at least when everything is already said and done, it may not be possible it will not be possible for the government to retract on its previous stand after the state screening committees have also already screened out, shortlisted from the 11 applicants to 5 and had already been forwarded to the center. So, after all this, we have seen that the agitation has gained momentum, and in response to whatever have transpired, the state government have constituted a cabinet subcommittee. We have had thorough deliberations with the joint JCC, and we discussed. So after they have also reacted to us, the state cabinet has again met with their reduced representation again. But we have found out that in due time they have already written to the UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, and also to the DOPT, asking the center to review the state government's recommendations. So now what we can do is we'll have to wait for the opinion of the DOPT, the UPSC, whatever their observation will be. Whether the state government has violated the guidelines or flaunted some rules and regulations of 1954 and 1997 IAS appointment and selection procedures or not, and whether what the state government have shortlisted and have recommended will qualify or not, that depends on them. So this is where we are. But that is one aspect of it, to put our case to the center to let them decide on our future course of action and the fate of our candidates. The other side is we would still request that our issues, why don't we solve it ourselves? Why every small little issue matter has to go out of the state always for the center or for a third party to intervene and solve our problems? I think the government has done nothing new, and we are just practicing the conventional way of how the government had been in the past. So we still request that the GSCC, with all the sister organizations, they kindly reconsider their stand, and for the sake and in the interest of the state and the people especially, they must call off their band-down strike and restore normalcy so that the government can continue to serve our land and our people. Something which must be accepted and realized by our people is of late we have seen so many agitations, and wherever possible government has relented to the people's desire, having to review the cabinet's own stand. But this cannot become a daily affair. The government is here today, not by choice of its own. No sitting member of the assembly is elected by himself or appointed by himself. It is the people who have elected them, and it is the people who have given their power to rule, decide, and carry forward the affairs of the state by the mandate which they have given to their elected members. So, in any part of the world, wherever you see democratic system of governance, the people, once in 5 years term, at least go to choose their confident leaders among them and place the fate and destiny of the people in their hands, at least for that period of time, that is 5 years. So today, when the government has not completely gone out of its way and embarked on a new system or a new practice, I wish our people do not resort to opposition and agitation every time for every issue like this, stalling the governance of the government over our land, our people, for every issue. Government has not committed any crime as far as this time is concerned. If it was not practiced, then the government might have stepped on the wrong side this time. But this was a age-old, decades-old practice which the government has only been adhering to. So if there's a new realization that this should stop, there's always enough avenue to discuss about the pros and cons as to why or why not it should continue or not. So both sides can put in their position without immobilizing, paralyzing the government. This is where the people are going to suffer. So I would say let us be more sensible and abhor this kind of practices. It's our request, sincere request to them that they must call off this fight.
But they have been saying that they are not opposed to non-state gather, non-state civil gather, but they are opposed to recommendation of a particular person or maybe persons who are backdoor appointees. That is the main concern. They are saying that it is not in other non-state service matters, but particularly backdoor appointees. So what is the stand of the government on backdoor appointees?
In the first place, I fail to understand the meaning of backdoor appointees. An appointment is appointment. The entry point may not be through the civil service, state civil at PSC. But if in other ways, which has been practiced since the inception of the state, others are also appointed, and in due course of time they are regularized, and they also perform and shoulder the burdens of the state and discharge their responsibility equally as any other officer who goes through the state civil service exams. I don't know why merit should not be rewarded. Not all are brilliant, I must say. Not all are studious in life. So everybody can't face an examination board. And everyone cannot excel in front of such kinds of competitive exams, unfortunately. But if either way, somehow they enter the services and their performance grow in efficiency and eligibility, efficiency in their administrative or other roles that they are assigned for, then they should also be rewarded equally. There should be room for these officers to also be rewarded at the end of the day. In fact, there are many who also shoulder equal responsibility and perform equally well as per their other colleagues who have entered through the state civil service. So the state still feels that there should be at least some room for the state government to observe and reward such officers also. And you will see in the papers that I've given you tonight, you read it properly, the DOPT guidelines and the other central guidelines, they never mention that it must be through the state civil service boards. There's no such thing. And they were citing some case which was there earlier. I'm not very sure about it. But the latest is this. I think you should have a copy. On the 1st of February this year, 1st of February this year, a similar case propped up in the state of Rajasthan, where a known Rajasthan State Civil Service cadre was taken up for recommendation. So, a certain NGO and a petitioner has filed a special leave petition to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court had tried the case and they have dismissed the case, which was earlier already decided by the High Court of Rajasthan. And the Rajasthan High Court had not only dismissed the case, but had imposed rupees 5 lakhs penalty on the petitioner of this special leave petition. So the Supreme Court felt that that was a little on the higher side, and they have scaled it down to rupees 2 lakhs fine imposed. And they say that the vacancies can be filled up by a non-state civil, Rajasthan State Civil Public Commission. It's exactly our case one. And this was on the 1st of February 2025. So if you are to take this as a precedent, where the observation of the Supreme Court says that the state government has done nothing wrong, but they have followed the DOPT guidelines existing and the 1997 IAS appointments and selection procedures. So we're exactly in the same position today. So, but still then, this pertains to another state. So we say that they have written to the UPSC, to the DOPT central authorities. So let us wait on the comments of the observation and the decision of these authorities at least. And so within this span of time, please, let us call off the strike and let normalcy return. That is our case. Well, they are free to avail the options. They have it at their disposal to go to, seek legal redressal. But the law is the same in this country for every state. We're all under the same law, the same constitution. So, and though high courts may differ from state to state, the Supreme Court is the ultimate for all. So I don't think they will have two yardsticks for two different states for the same matter in similar cases. But they are always, as I said, free to avail that option if they so wish.
So, sir, with this kind of function in the education government, how is the government going to manage the paralyzed system of the government of this government?
Well, you can see, but they have taken the state to ransom. We can't move. So I think this is not fair. As civil servants, as government employees, committed to work for the interests of the state and the people, I think their conscience must speak to them for the greater interest of the people. They must review their stand. There's nothing which is not negotiable. You see, there's always room for understanding and for rectifications without having to go to this extent. We've had much more serious issues in the past, and we will continue to have many different issues with or without saying the looming issues that are hanging above us and all around us also. But if for everything we are to start agitating and taking matters to the street and paralyzing the functioning of the state, which is the last mechanism that is at least breeding and trying to keep things moving in the state for our people, I think this is not fair. They must review their stand. You will understand the feelings of the government. It's in a catch-22 situation. Whether to react or whether to continue to endure this inconvenience. But to everything there's a limit. And if we are pushed to the wall, then you know what will follow. And that is something we want to avoid at any cost. To be at loggerheads with our own hands and legs. See, they control the government machinery. So it's the most vital organ in the entire government machinery. So we are in such a position where we are almost helpless.
So, is there any chance of the sabotage will come to any of the pieces? Now we know well that going on before should not have been added. Would there be any possibility?
Well, I would not like to say that. I wish it is as how we assume it is, that it was unintentional error and oversight in the dealings with the procedures. And it was a procedural lapse without having to have any intentions or other ulterior motives. I wish that can be understood, and we'll keep it there. Frontier Nagaland issue. I'm confident that all of you are now very familiar with the issue and the matters surrounding our FMT. Time to time, I've been trying to brief you and share with you the points that are being discussed. Here, it's been some time, about a year since it is a trilateral talk now. Earlier, for more than a decade, it was a bilateral talks only between the ENP authorities and the MHA New Delhi. So we were all in the dark. But after much discussion, our new government, under the leadership of Dr. Rio, after several cabinet meetings, have decided that this is an issue which pertains to the geopolitical territory of our state. And every citizen of the state deserves to know what is going on in the northernmost part, or southern, or western, or easternmost part of our state. So ultimately, it's about a year since the government has come out open, threadbare, after the state says that this has to be a trilateral, tripartite talk, and not only confined between the ENPO authorities and the MHA. So we have learned many things of what were the discussions that transpired for more than a decade. It was late in the day because many foundations were already laid, and not that they are wrong, but they could not be overhauled again. So, going by wherever it was possible to make corrections, where it was absolutely necessary, only the state has intervened. After taking the consent and extensive consultations from our people, mass-based organization, the government had drawn up certain points that will go down well with both sides after the FMT is established. So in the best interest of the citizens from every corner of our state, the state had requested that whatever negotiation discussions were going on, that many points should also be shared with the state government to see how much or how many can be considered, to what extent, and how many has to be rolled back. So there were extensive discussions and subcommittees and nodal officers were appointed, subject matter specialists were teamed up into small cells, and they have visited the matters, the points that were matters of concern for the state and the people. So after having conducted all these exercises, the state recommended certain points on the placement of those papers from the center, wherever the state's intervention was required. It was not easy for the state government also, but somehow, wherever possible, changes, additions, or deletions, or alterations were made also. And it had been sent to the government of India as the state's opinion on the proposed points. But unfortunately, this being a new exercise, something entirely new for all of us, the ENPO as well as for the state to be handling something like this, not a union territory, not another state, not under the 6th schedule, no more of the regional council of the 60s and 70s. This is a new experience for all of us. But it should be within the Article 371A, that is our state's provision in the Constitution. So it's quite a tricky matter and very, I must say, complicated, because while accommodating our desires, our people's desires, and the new entity, the state cannot disown its responsibility also. We can't shirk it off, because whatever name and style the entity takes, and whatever shapes it assumes ultimately, it is still a part of the state. So the state government is the ultimate authority and the guardian, the custodian of the welfare of our people and our land throughout every inch of the state. But that has not been dismantled. So the government, the state government, have to think from all sides. New Delhi's acceptance, our ENPO's acceptance, the state's acceptance to what extent we can, and we should all know. So the earlier recommendation has been somehow again returned from Delhi to be reviewed by us, the state government, with more inputs from the ENPO. So in the last cabinet, we had in fact, just 2 of them are out of station because of their parents' treatments. Other than that, I think all were there, and we have thoroughly deliberated. Something we have observed, which came to light, is there's a slight gap. There's a slight gap of communication in between the ENLU, Eastern Nagaland Legislators Union, and ENPO authorities, whereby there appears to be some points where they're not familiar. So this is something very serious, which we would like their own leaders to have more deliberation, more consultation from within them, because though it is our affair, it is our business, all of us, but it is more so from within the Eastern Territory that the leaders should be more seriously engaged in. So if there are miscommunications and tomorrow without the consent or without proper consultation, a matter gets through and it comes as a surprise, not pleasant but otherwise, that would be very unfortunate for the group concerned, which should not happen, and which the state feels that should never happen. So we would request the negotiating parties to take along everybody, especially leaders, because the leaders are elected. They have 20 elected members from the present ENPO region. They are not self-appointed. They are elected by the people, and whatever is being negotiated today is also for the same people and the same land. So there should be more understanding, coherence, and unanimity among them while resolving the points. That is where we are, and we have again put in our observations, and that should happen. And in some areas, we are trying to make adjustments again. The state government have conveyed the factual position of the official structure of the state, and wherever it is not possible to accommodate their demands, we have requested our officials already engaged and their leaders to try and make the ENPO understand all the difficulties. But that is where we are today. The uniqueness could be in the light of comparison with the other autonomous councils that are existing in the state now. So whether it will be exactly in the form of the 6th schedule or not, that we can't still fathom, foretell. But because we have our own 371A, within which the erstwhile 60s regional council existed, we have taken cue from there and have started this again. So more or less, we hope that Delhi will be kind enough, but within the 371A, how much autonomy and how much enhancement of the stature can be considered to, we wish it is given. We wish it is adapted. As for the second one, it is, I will say, the last time I think I have shared with you. In certain departments, like for example my department, the electricity power department, this is where they have demanded that it should be managed by that authority as and when they achieve it. But the government was clear from day one that this department is almost exclusively centrally sponsored projects and schemes. And we don't generate little or almost nothing of electricity from here. So it will be very difficult for our new entity and authorities to manage this. So this time round also we will try to make that picture clear to our elected members. And I've told them also that whatever budget is allocated for the new entity, you may spend half of that budget not on developments but in payment for revenue for consumption of that electricity. That is going to set the entire budgetary provisions, almost entire. And then when it is compounded by penalties and accumulation starts building up, tomorrow it will be the one area which consumes 90% of the development funds. That will be counterproductive. So the department-wise, we certainly have agreed to have a senior official posted there, like others also. But in terms of management, that is something where we have to revisit. But there are areas like that in the medical health and family health, in the health sector also, then in the school and higher education sectors also. And like that, there are other 2-3 departments where I feel for the good of all, the management, supervision should be left to the state as of now. Those are the areas people should. When something is cooking, I don't know whether we should bring out everything for open discussions, because there are certain things which are very sensitive. It can be very sensitive. So, but I have hinted you last time, it is to do with something to do with the division of power and the roles to be played also. It's tricky, that's why I'm saying it's tricky. It's not exactly 6th schedule, no autonomous council, but it is under 371A. So we have, as of now, 20 legislators who are members of the State Assembly. They will also certainly be members of the new entity. They are answerable to their electorates who are citizens from that territory. Now, if they don't know what is going on inside their own territories, how will they be answerable to the State Assembly tomorrow? And vice versa. Okay? So, a time will come when things will be ironed out, and we will be in a better position to share with our people. But rest assured, nothing is against the interest of the state. Yeah, rest assured. Embarked on this time also is the issue of our indigenous status. And in connection to that, why the government has started pushing this matter of the register of indigenous inhabitants of Nagaland. And you can see the strict imposition of the Inner Line Permit Regulations Act of 1873. So, in order to strictly and efficiently implement the ILP, the state government has to know who are its indigenous citizens and who are not. That becomes the benchmark and the most important hurdle in our way of imposing these laws in our state. So, while trying to ascertain the position, the state government has resorted to enlisting the genuine indigenous citizens and delisting the others from this list. Everything is so jumbled up. With due respect to our predecessors, times were different and times were very normal. We had no threats, and least of them, they did not perceive any threat for our people and for the future generations at that time when the state was born. The people were innocent, people were very simple and life was so simple that way. So the government of those days also did not have to resort to any strictures while issuing different certificates or extending benefits to the people of the state settled within our jurisdiction. So this complacency, I should say, and casual, simple attitude has landed us into deep trouble. Well, now it's quite late, but as they say, better late than never. The government of the day today is trying to make up for all those years where it has not been stern enough and assert itself. So, going back to the past is always a very difficult thing. But in order to streamline the administration and the policies governing our government, there are no options, but we have to rough up some feathers. And that is where we are. We're facing backlashes. We're facing the consequences of having to be a little stern and impose the strictures on our citizens. But it is for the good of all times to come, so that the ensuing leaders and governments will have a better, clearer policy to adhere to and rule the state. And the citizens also would know who enjoys what, who deserves what, and who should be contented with what. Their own positions has to be made clear to them. So reality, facts sometimes are hard to swallow. But sooner or later, I think we have to face the truth in the face. So now we have identified that there are indigenous tribes, meaning to say those tribes which are native to this land, whose forefathers and ancestors have come some 1,000 plus, nearly 2,000 years ago, so many 200-300 centuries, and have settled in this free land, and have occupied this part of the world, and have become natives, and have since then exerted their ownership over the land and this territory. And in the surrounding areas, we have, especially Dimapur, the plains of Dimapur, and those adjoining Assam, we have gone and owned after the previous occupants have deserted. They have relinquished their positions, whatever authority they have established then, and they have deserted and abandoned those places and have shifted off since so many years back. So now, automatically, ownership falls into the lands, into the hands of the occupants, and that is the Nagas, the indigenous Nagas inhabiting the higher hills of the state who have gone occupied. So this is the place and the point where now we come down to the four tribes, sub-tribes, like Bugis, Kacharis, Mikis, and Garos, especially. So whatever status they might have been accorded earlier, from now on, after ascertaining what the meaning of indigenous is, we have to find out whether they are indigenous to this state and the places where they have established their places now. But when we look into their historical background, the larger chunk of their kith and cliques have their family lineage has not originated from the place where they are occupied, but they have their community members spread across 3-4 states in the northeast of India. This is where the danger lies, that the people who are here presently in Nagaland may go to any other state where their communities are settled and claim citizenship. Vice versa, there are other communities settled in other parts of the northeastern states can come in any day and claim citizenship in our state also. So you have the Kukis who are scattered across Mizoram, Manipur, and the likes. You have them in Nagaland also. Then you have the Garos also in Assam. You have them in Meghalaya. And likewise, the others also, they have it spread into other states. This is where the Kacharis also in Assam, today also in NC Hills, and to the Kachar Hills also. They are spread across 2-3 states. Now, if we want to implement the ILP strictly, we cannot exempt the non-indigenous inhabitants of Nagaland. We cannot exempt. They have to be posted. So in the register of indigenous inhabitants of Nagaland, the RIN, their names have to be deleted, if it was entered. And no other indigenous tribes, communities, and individuals should find their name in the indigenous register. And that is from where this list will decide whether they should be conferred the indigenous status or not, and thereby be given the indigenous certificate. And they will, in turn, avail all the benefits that are due to them. That is the whole idea. But if one is not an indigenous citizen of the state, they cannot avail the indigenous certificate. And thereby they will be deprived of other benefits which other indigenous communities are availing. So in order to segregate, to clarify their position, the state government has asked the administration, in consultation with all other relevant CSOs and tribal organizations and the subordinate authorities, to collaborate and start this exercise to a certain from the grassroots level, which is the village authorities. Now, when this started, certain communities like them have rebelled and they objected to this identification of their backgrounds. And the government had made certain cut-off years and certain references to the first state election electoral rolls also, and other proofs the state has also provided to let them bring forward. But these 4 sub-tribes, they refuse to go for new registration and for any authority to come and enumerate them, ascertain their status and their background, and they started taking recourse to go to the court and challenge the government's order. So here it is very unfortunate, and they wanted that, if at all an enumeration is to be undertaken, that it should also cover all the other indigenous Naga tribes from other districts also. But government is clear about it, that all other tribes who are indigenous already need not go again for enumeration, because besides one or two, but they don't contact each other. We don't have our communities of tribesmen outside the state of Florida. And we have, for example, the Konyaks. They have their tribal communities in Arunachal. But the Konyaks of Arunachal and Konyaks of Nagaland, they don't migrate into each other's villages or towns, or also take part in any other kind of activities except because of some tribal affinities. Otherwise, they don't transcend the state borders. So, like that, we have a few Chagasans also across the border in Manipur. But that also, we have that tribal affinity, no doubt. But other than that, we don't go, they don't come also. So other than these few, and a few Zeliaks, which I think they also don't transcend borders, and they are okay in their own states, Manipur, Assam. The Lothars don't have any tribal communities outside. Yeah. Aos don't have, Semas don't have, you name it. Home, Chang, whatever. So, unlike these four tribes, our major community tribes are based here, and we have little or no contacts outside. This is the reason why we said whoever is settled here and the names are enrolled in the first electoral roll need not be re-enumerated. But for the others, they should prove that their parents or their grandparents were a part of that electoral roll. And they should be able to bring out proofs. That is the condition that the government put forward to them, but they refuse, saying that they will not go for enumeration, and they have gone to court. So here we have a situation where the state government has no option, and the cabinet has decided, after thorough discussion, that because of this challenge and dragging the state government to the courts, the earlier, whatever status and benefits and positions the government has conferred will be frozen, and nothing will move until the court gives, we see the end of the day of the court's verdict. Or either they should withdraw their case, whatever has been filed in the court. And if the approach is redirected, anything is possible. But if things are to be dragged to this extent, I'm doubtful whether the government will reconsider its earlier stand. So here, one thing has to be clear. Though indigenous status, the position is still being debated and discussed and has been frozen. The ST, the scheduled tribe status, the government can always accord to them, the scheduled tribes. But the indigenous status is an altogether different matter. So that is something different. Scheduled tribe status, we will always recommend. That is where we are. It's to do with the inner line permit. For according them the PRC, TRC and PRC, permanent residence certificate and temporary residence certificate, to have the differentiation. So, 1873, again I have forgotten to bring my, let's see here. I'll give you 1873 Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation. Hey, you go through it, okay? I'll give it to you. You will see the provisions of the inner line permit regulations. you study carefully and you see the implications. Point number 7 deals with property, and it is clearly mentioned that no other persons other than the natives, that means indigenous citizens, should acquire any land or have any interest in the possession of landed properties. So, what the state government is trying to modify a little is if there are consensus with our actual custodians, the tribal authorities, then we can make some concessions slightly. Otherwise, we have to go strictly by those provisions of those years. But it is in line with that. Because indigenous cannot be awarded, it cannot be conferred, it cannot be modified and given to somebody who is not. Just like that. So it's inborn inheritance. That title is inherited through your birth, not through any other means. That is where the government is to help us.